Here's the thing that nobody talks about. You're not lazy. You never were. The stuff you keep putting off, it's not the stuff you don't care about. It's the stuff that matters most to you. And that's exactly why you can't start. Think about it. You'll spend 3 hours organizing your desk. You'll binge an entire season of something you don't even like. You'll reply to emails that don't matter. But that one project, the one that actually means something to you, the book, the business, the conversation you need to have, that's the thing that sits untouched for weeks, months, sometimes years. And every night you go to bed thinking tomorrow will be different. It won't be. Not until you understand what's actually happening inside your head. See, procrastination has almost nothing to do with time management. It's not a productivity problem. It's an emotional problem. Specifically, it's a protection mechanism. Your brain has learned to associate the things you care about most with the highest possible stakes. And where there are high stakes, there is fear. Where there is fear, there is avoidance. It's that simple and that brutal. When something doesn't matter to you, there's no risk. If you send a mediocre email, who cares? If you fold laundry badly, nothing happens. But the moment you sit down to work on something tied to your identity, something that represents who you believe you could become, your brain does a calculation. It says, if I try this and it's not good enough, then maybe I'm not good enough. And that thought is so threatening, so quietly devastating, that your mind will do almost anything to avoid it, including nothing. This is what psychologists call self-worth protection theory. You procrastinate not because you're avoiding the task. You're avoiding the judgment. The task is just the trigger. Underneath it is a very old belief that your value as a person is conditional on your performance. So by never fully trying, you never fully fail. You get to keep the fantasy alive. You get to say, I could have done it if I really wanted to. And that story feels safer than the truth, which is I tried my best and it still wasn't enough. Let that land for a second. The thing you've been calling laziness is actually a defense mechanism, protecting you from an emotional wound you might not even remember receiving. Now here's where it gets darker. The avoidance doesn't just protect you, it confirms the very thing you're afraid of. Every day you don't start, a small voice inside you says, see, you can't even begin. How would you ever finish? And that voice gets louder over time. Procrastination feeds shame. Shame feeds procrastination. It's a loop, and it's airtight. You can't think your way out of it. You can't just decide to be disciplined, because discipline isn't the thing that's broken. What's broken is the story you're telling yourself about what it means to fail at something you love. There's a concept in psychology called ego involvement. When your ego is fused with a task, meaning your sense of self depends on the outcome, your nervous system treats that task like a threat, not a challenge, a threat. Your body responds the same way it would if you were in danger. Heart rate goes up, focus scatters. You feel a pull toward anything that offers immediate relief. Your phone, food, sleep, anything but the thing. And this is why the most ambitious people are often the worst procrastinators. It's not a contradiction. It's a direct consequence. The more you care, the more it costs to confront. So what do you actually do with this? First, you separate your identity from your output. This sounds simple. It's not. It requires you to sit with the uncomfortable truth that you might pour yourself into something and it might not work. And you need to be okay surviving that. Not thriving, just surviving. Because the fear isn't really about failure. It's about annihilation. Some part of you believes that if this thing doesn't work, you disappear. You won't. You need to teach your nervous system that. Second, you lower the emotional temperature of the task. Don't sit down to write the novel. Sit down to write one bad paragraph. Don't launch the business. Just register the name. You're not tricking yourself. You're giving your brain evidence that approaching this thing will not destroy you. That's it. That's the whole game. Tiny exposures that slowly dissolve the fear. Third, and this one matters, you grieve the time you've already lost, not dramatically, quietly. You acknowledge that the avoidance had a cost, and you stop pretending it didn't. Because as long as you minimize it, you'll keep repeating it. The grief is what breaks the cycle. It's what makes the next moment feel different from the last 100. You are not broken for procrastinating on things you love. You are wired to protect what matters most to you. But protection and progress can't live in the same hand. At some point, you have to set one down. Start with the thing that scares you. Not because you're ready, because you'll never be ready. That's the whole point. If this made something click for you, consider subscribing. We make videos like this every week. Quiet truths about the parts of your mind you don't always get to see.